Let's talk money.
I don't have your money.
I know I'd be a lot happier with some extra cash.
Is this about money?
Obviously, this is all about money.
Oh, man, we got bills to pay, buddy.
With practical tips and a focus on Scripture, let's talk money. With Dave and Reb. From More Than Enough. Real conversations about money for real people. Let's talk money.
Are you ready to talk money, Reb?
I'm ready to talk money.
That is really good. I was just looking at you going, we kind of have the
Christmas vibe.
Christmas vibe going. And again, if you're on YouTube, you would see that. If you're not on YouTube, then maybe check us out on YouTube and you can see.
If we sit close enough together, our sweaters don't end, so you can't see where it's.
So for those of you who are listening to the podcast and those of you who aren't going to check it out on YouTube, Reb and I are wearing the same Christmas.
We weren't going to tell them, so they'd have to go look. Anyway, welcome to the show. It's almost Christmas, and we are looking forward to a break. I can tell you, I'm looking forward to break. I am asking my children to give to me this Christmas and my husband by cooking. So I don't have to cook. Right. And we're going to go simple food, hopefully. Unless you guys make a different food plan.
The kids have a pretty significant.
I know they like to cook.
Cooking, whatever you call that, where they can,
vibe.
Yeah, well, they can cook pretty well.
Yes. So anyway, that is how you're going to give to me. See, I'm telling you how you're going to do it, but I'm asking for that give from my family, which leads us to the topic of giving. Now, that's what we're going to talk about today because we want to encourage you all who are listening, encourage ourselves to keep giving. The Lord is really impressed on us that we've got to keep living. And part of living is giving because as we follow Christ, we emulate, we carry his DNA into the world, and giving is such an abundant part of who God is. So we're going to dig into that conversation. But if you want to listen to any of our previous shows, from 2022 or beyond, this is our getting into our 6th year of podcasting and at CHRI. And we're so glad and thankful for Will and the team here who makes us sound as best as we can. And we're just grateful. So you can go to a podcasting platform. We have on YouTube, Let's Talk Money with Dave and Reb, and you can find us there.
Wow. I'm really, that's pretty impressive. For those of you who listen to the show, Reb doesn't often do kind of the intro part. So I'm giving you that responsibility today.
Thank you. You're giving.
It's my gift to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Anyway, so we're talking about giving. We want to encourage you not to shrink back from giving. We want you to plan giving. We want you to stick to what you plan. And we also want to encourage you to give first. So that's what you're going to hear about in the show. So now you can turn it off. Now
don't do that. We got so many things, practical tips and things that giving, first of all, is an attitude. And I love what you said before. And I say it so many times because I think it's just such a big part of who we are. Giving is really the kind of the DNA of God in us. When we think about God the Father, when we think about all of it, right from Genesis right through to literally Revelation, if we're thinking about the beginning of time to the end of time, what do we see? But we see this part of God that is generous, this part of God that, in the beginning, God created, he made a garden, Adam and Eve went in there. All of that was a gift. All of that was God. And then again, we look through history and we can look through our own lives and go, man, how many times haven't I felt just that part of God that is so charitable, that is so giving. And so we have all these words that describe it, but I just like the idea that this is the DNA of God manifest in us when we give. And statistically, health-wise, we know that, people who give, who are generous are actually physically healthier emotionally and healthier physically.
I know. And I didn't take the time to actually go read up on that either, but I did read on other stats that we're going to share in a minute. But there has been, in the reading we've done, giving is better for your health. Like I love it when science backs up what
Scripture actually says over and over again, and we go, okay, so, I know that not everybody has, gets gets jived being generous, but I can tell you that it is good. I mean, and that's not just from me, but that's from, all kinds of observations over the years by lots of other people is, hey, we just are, generosity breeds this idea of, hey, it's good. Right. It's part of God.
So Matthew 6 is one of your favorite passages. Yes. And in the book I wrote last year, Cultivating Trust, I talk a lot based out of Matthew, because those are Jesus's words to us. And he took the time to express over and over again that we are to live with another kingdom in mind, with his kingdom in mind. And so Matthew 6, I've picked a whole bunch of verses today that I could read, but I'm just going to go with this to start. Matthew 6, 19, 20, and 21 doesn't talk specifically about the word give, but it says this: don't lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And as we exercise the muscle of giving, or the DNA, as we've said, what I've been reading a book about giving, and the author actually states that giving is a spiritual discipline, that we need to exercise it. We need to learn how to give, just like we need to learn how to pray. And because there is, I will use the word aversion, and I'm going to try.
Come naturally. How about that?
Okay, it doesn't come naturally, but we don't talk in Christian circles all the time about money. And right now, there's a lot of talk about money. There's a lot of talk about giving, because at this time of year, we get a lot of stuff in the mail, or we get a lot of requests to give, and we may have giving fatigue. We may, you just throw out the requests because there's so many. Your inbox might be full of them. Then we talk about money in a context right now that it's inflation, it's rising costs, all of that, and it's not helpful. So David and I want to keep encouraging you to have healthy conversation. Remember what Jesus said. And today Jesus said, don't lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. And that is a kingdom model. That is living for another kingdom that we already are a part of, where Jesus is king. And this is the exciting part of giving. We actually join him today, this very day, and where he is giving to people, where he is walking with people. And we're not just talking money, we're talking about sharing what you have. So you may think, well, I don't have a lot of extra right now and I'm super stressed. But maybe you can start shifting how you think about your giving. How can I share what I have? You love that word share. And Dave actually is starting to prefer that word sharing over the word give, because sharing is just, it's providing the resources, just sharing. It's just sharing.
Yeah. It again, in my own, as in my own journey around giving, it goes back to my role as a steward. I see the heart of God, and I see God going, hey, I've given you this opportunity. I've given you this amount of money. I've given you this talent. I've given you this time. And again, the word of the Lord to me is, and I want you to share this with the world. I want you to share this with your neighbor. I want you to share this with and so what does that look like? Well, again, we think of if I give, again, this is in my own, as I've journeyed through, if I give, I'm kind of divesting. I have something, I give it away.
Right, because you hear in that word kind of like, well, it's all about me and I'm doing this honorable thing by taking a part of my life and giving it to someone.
It goes to the ownership part. I've taken ownership, and look at me, I can give this away. Whereas when I think about it in terms of my own stewardship, I go, wait a minute, not only am I am I sharing what God has given me? So God's given me, but I actually do retain something in the giving. I do retain. And so as I share it, I just get to experience the joy. I get to experience maybe seeing someone move. We share some money that we have that helps someone get out of debt. Well, then I actually get to share in their joy of being released from the burden of debt. Mm-hmm. And so for me, again, I know it's a little semantics and we can use the different word.
I know, here's the word guy all of a sudden.
But I do like the idea or the word of sharing more than I do like the word giving, because it just resonates more with my stewardship journey.
Okay, so there's so much in my head right now. I want to share. So I'm just going to quickly share.
Can I back up one second? I know you're going to say, but you mentioned that right now in this season, it is the season of giving, right? We hear that often in the month of December.
But it's stressing us out because we have the lists of okay, go ahead.
So I was just going to suggest, and we're talking about planning and going through and being intentional. Mm-hmm. And, you'd mentioned that sometimes we get all these requests for giving and all we do is rip them up and we throw them in the garbage. And what I want to suggest this morning is that you don't do that right away. That maybe you get a folder, you get an envelope and you go, all right, I'm not going to throw it in the garbage. I'm just simply going to throw it in the envelope because I don't have maybe margin now, or I don't have the capacity, or maybe it is stressing me out. But these are things that, again, we're going to talk a little bit about checking how we can actually intentionally give. But this, if you throw it in an envelope, then you can go back to it later and you can say, okay, when I am ready to think and plan my giving, then I can actually look through the things that have come in the mail or the things that maybe have sparked me as sometimes in my world, it comes in an email and I think, oh, that'd be a really great place to give. And then I click and I delete and I go, well, hit print, put it in the envelope, or hit, move it to a folder in your inbox that just is potential giving.
Right. Okay.
And then it just, again, stores it away, because what we do know about giving is that you don't have to give to everything. Follow your heart in your giving, right? So God is going to speak to your heart, Reb, and he's going to say, these are the things that I want you to participate with me in your giving. And then he's going to say something to me, and he's going to say, Dave, and these are the things that I want to put on your heart that you're going to give to. And we're a couple, so hopefully some of those things are the same and we can go. But there are some times where I go, well, I just feel like we should give to this, and you do the same to me. And it is a checking of your heart. It is your giving follows your heart.
So there's a lot of practical things that are, because you've talked about something practical. So, okay, let's first off, we're getting a lot of requests. So as Dave suggests, let's just put those in a folder away for a time when we're not so overwhelmed. Because right now I'm just checking them. Like, really? Because I know where we're giving. I know where we plan to give in 2022. But you know what? I am not honoring actually the request either by just throwing them out. So that's just something for me. That's probably a good idea. Now, there's a place I want to go. We want to go to the intentional planning of giving, not just doing it on a whim, and how we can construct that inner spending plan by creating something we call a kingdom account. So we want to give that practicality. But before we get there to the sit down, the meeting, the practical part of planning, what are the obstacles? If you could summarize like 3 obstacles that might be at work in someone's life right now, keeping them from giving, what would you say? And I kind of threw this on Dave.
Sure. Well, I can right off the get-go, fear. Okay. Number one, I would say that is the biggest deterrent to giving is I'm afraid there isn't going to be enough next week. If I divest myself of this money, then I'm afraid that there's not going to be enough. And I can give the antidote to that, by the way. I mean, there is a verse, and it's a pretty clear verse that says, and there's many verses, but this one strikes me as the most obvious antidote to that is that the generous man seems to gain more, while the stingy man loses what he has, right? That's one of the Proverbs. And so we look at that and we go, that's a little bit of a principle of God at work. And we won't get into all of that, except for that's the observation that the writer of Proverbs has.
So I just want to quickly clarify. We are not telling you that you're going to gain more money.
No.
Because just because you give doesn't mean that that's the blessing you receive. That is not the treasure necessarily that you're going to get. Sometimes it comes back monetarily, but really, to me, this is about walking with Christ and with Abba and with the Spirit of God. It is about deeper relationship as we give, as we share what we have, as we pour forth the resources God's given us. There is this intimacy that is fostered and blessing that comes in our walk with God.
And it is linking Matthew 6, right? So, linking that proverb into Matthew 6 and saying, okay, we are building, in a sense, that eternal treasure. And again, we see the effects of that eternal treasure in joy and peace. So I may give money and the joy comes back to me, right? Or I may give money and an opportunity goes. And I love this story. Maybe, do we have time for a really quick story? I read this story in one of the books around giving. And the story, and I won't do it justice just in the essence of time, but there's a missionary and there's his gospel patron. That was the book I was reading, and his patron, and they're walking along the countryside together talking about the Lord, and he sees in the distance a port. And a young man, the businessman who is supporting the missionary, calls a young boy over and says, "Here, I want you to go do this down at the port. Tell this person to do that." And the missionary who's there, they're having this spiritual conversation. And the missionary says, "Well, what was that all about?" And he says, "Well, I just paid for I just had a thought, an inspiration, which is going to make some more money. It's going to pay for our time here, and it's going to support." And the businessman is using his gift to, he's giving his time, he's having the time with this missionary, but he's using his gift as a businessman when he recognizes the opportunity. And no direct connect, but there is a direct connect there.
So you're saying that giving comes in many forms. So when we put aside fear, there's a creativity that can come that fosters in this businessman more income so that he can give in a different way.
And there's more trust, right?
And there's more trust. Okay, so here's the other thing. So let's go back just quickly to the obstacles. We said fear. Mm-hmm. And in one of the books I've been reading by Lori Gunther Reeser, where she's writing about giving in Canada right now in churches. I'll reference those in the show notes, and we're going to have her on the show in 2023. But moving our treasure through giving shifts our hearts. But the more we trust, the more we give. So as we trust more in God, as we trust more in the institution maybe that we're donating to, we're going to build a trusting relationship and be giving more. And that happens. And that's trust is a part of the opposite thing that's at work from fear. So that fear is an obstacle. We won't have enough. One of the things I think is focus. One of the obstacles. What are we focused on? And
you hit the one. That was my number 2 was distraction. I was going to come at it from the other way. The obstacle is distraction. We have so many kind of things that are going on that we simply get distracted into not giving.
Right.
Like we just kind of, hey, life is going, the money's going here, the money's going there. And sometimes we do look back at the end of the week and we kind of say to ourselves, jeepers, didn't we talk about giving that last week and it just didn't happen? So
the practical part, we're going to throw one in there right now, is if you do automated giving, it's really a helpful thing. So you decide to do it, go do it. And it ties back into first give first. This is actually, I heard this years ago by a financial guy on Oprah the Winfrey Show. I heard it years and years ago. This isn't even a Christian, biblical, it is a biblical principle, right? But it's also out there. Lots of people who aren't faith-filled people give first because they know what it adds to their life and they do it off the top. So that is a big encouragement. Decide and do it automated. It actually is really helpful. If you're running frantically in your life, if there's a lot of stress and pressures, but you want to give something, go find they have donation ways. There's a million ways to donate. Canada Helps. There's so many organizations who you can donate through Canada Helps, and you can do it through your bank account or through a, I won't say credit card, but I am saying credit card, as long as you pay it off. Anyway. And
I will encourage you that if you use some of these services and there is a charge to do it, to cover the charge as well. Right?
Because
that's just a practical, sometimes you're going to give and then you're going, it's going to cost the charity an extra $3.
And sometimes they have it on there, will you cover that $2.80 charge that it's going to cost? Yeah. So we've got fear, we've got distraction or focus. So my girlfriend sent me a song this morning that we listened to on the way in because of some of my own struggles this season. And it's Lauren Daigle's song. I don't even know. Is it Look Up or
Look Up Child?
Look Up Child. Talk about a great focus. And it goes back to the 5 loaves and 2 fish. He, because what happens in that story, and one of the references to that story in the Gospels, it clearly says Jesus looks up. So as you're considering giving, as you're facing your fear, because you can't just dismiss fear, you have to face it. Face the fear with the Lord. Remember who he is, that he is the great giver of life, and it's in his DNA to do giving. It's part of who he is. You look at the world around us, as Dave already said, but as you do it, look up and remember and offer what you have. So it's $10 a week. If you don't give now and you're giving $10 more, well, that's way more % increase than you've ever given. You can start small. It's okay. Why not try it? Why not?
Yeah. And again, I'm going to pick up on that. So for those of you that aren't giving, and there's no shame here, but think about this statistically, that if you even give $10, you have given infinitely more. Mathematically, you've given infinitely more. So
I know,
you
I was
can
trying
say,
to think of the percentage of
you
that.
You could say to, whoever asks, or you can boast about it a little bit, say, I increased my giving by infinite this year. You could do that, right?
Because you hadn't been giving. And
you don't have to mention the not giving part. But.
No, so I just want to encourage you, because Canadians are giving.
Yes.
We are in 2020, yes. We read a stat off Stats Canada, and I'll have it in the show notes. We gave over $10 billion, just $10.6 billion. Over the years from 2017, statistically speaking, Canadians are incrementally giving more. Now, the average give is still a small percentage. We believe it's about 1% or less.
I have a little giving thing. Just recently, I heard this week, and I don't know the stats, so we have to look it up, and you can put it in the show notes. But the largest donation in Canadian history happened this year in 2022. The largest donation. I believe it was from somebody from Winnipeg, or it happened out in Winnipeg.
Okay, well, I'll go see
we'll
if
get
I
to
can.
the bottom
I'll see
of that.
if I can find that and put it in the show notes too.
Somebody mentioned that to me, and I haven't had time to look it up.
So this is inspiring. But for those of you who, and I don't want you to listen to the show and think, I'm not giving. But we want to encourage you to give, because God is the giver of life. And look up, child. Look up to him and see all that he is and has done, and share what you have in a million ways. And you know what? As you connect with God, he's going to show you how to do that. So just in the last few minutes, we need to talk.
I want to talk about the giving first, because you mentioned that, and it's
there's so much to say.
It's really important to go, when we look back and some of God's instructions on giving, we don't give out of the abundance, in the sense of out of what we see the produce. I would say the end result of the produce. When God was talking to the Israelites about giving as they came into the promised land, he said, listen, I want you to give the first fruits. And part of that is the trust. We give the first fruits, but then there's a whole harvest yet to come. And we have to trust the Lord for that harvest. And so sometimes the Lord does test us on that. And he says, all right, so the first fruits come in, the first crop comes in, the first of your paycheck comes in. And he challenges us to give that first, so that we can learn to trust him with all of the rest that's going to come in after that. And that's okay.
So it's trusting his sight over our own. So it's
and his word.
And his word. And we only see in part. You know, 1 Corinthians says it. You know, one day we'll fully see and know because we're going to see Jesus as he is. But right now we don't see fully and clearly. And so if he says, do this, and as you spend time with the Lord and you're ignited by something passionately to give to, then follow that and ask the Lord what it is. And we just want to encourage you today. If you have never planned your giving, sit down this month, sit down with a pen and paper, talk to your spouse, talk to your family, maybe talk to your friends if you're single, and just bounce the ideas off of how can I give and how can I stick to it? Because when you plan that give, it's so important to stick to it, because there are some months where it's going to get strained. Maybe there are some months you're going to think, oh, I just can't do it. But when you give first, you will see, we have testimonies of what we've heard from people. You know, God doesn't always,
and it's committing.
It's committing to it and sticking to it, but he's not a magic genie. And because I give, I'm going to get blessed financially. That's not what we're teaching or what we're saying. But sometimes it is tight, but he asks us, will you give anyway? Because what you've committed to, what we've talked about in December 2022 is what I wanted you to do. And you were trusting me then. Will you trust me in the months of 2023 as it might get harder to give? But we just want to encourage you, write it down on a piece of paper, write where your heart's desire is, pray, talk to people about it. And
that's maybe when you pull out the envelope and you start going through these asks and you see what sparks your heart.
That's in your folder.
That's in your folder. So you pull out that folder, that envelope, and you say, hey, how are these things sparking? Maybe that's me, or maybe as a family you're giving, and you can sit down. Again, just real quick recap, sit down in an intentional time. Invite your family into the giving and go, okay, we're going to do some family giving, and then mom and dad are going to do some of their own personal giving. And depending on the ages of your kids, you're going to teach them, but they're also going to learn that, oh, this is just part of how we manage money, how we steward, is that a portion of it is going to be towards intentional giving. And we talked a little bit about the Kingdom account, and maybe I'll end with this idea of having an intentional time, committing to give for a year. So give to the charity or wherever it is for a year. And as part of that, you may want to have a separate account that you're going to consistently put money into, that you can say, this is for the spontaneous giving. This is for the things that when God puts on our heart, every paycheck you put money into it, again, automated. And well, we're at the end of the show.
We can talk more about the Kingdom account. And instead of praying today, I'm going to read these verses over all of you. He who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Let each one give as he purposes in his heart, not grudgingly out of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you, so that you always, having all sufficiency in all things, will have an abundance for every good work. May God grant us willing, joyful hearts to give, and may we purpose in our heart to give what he is leading us to in 2023.
Let's Talk Money is a division of More Than Enough Financial Fitness, where God is transforming hearts and bringing hope for today and freedom for tomorrow. For more information or to comment on today's show, please visit morethanenough.ca.